What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you have had a fantastic week and weekend as always. Today, we are here to cover the WWE PLE Royal Rumble for 2023. And man, it was I think, a really, really great show. Kind of surprised I heard a couple people saying that they didn't think the show itself was actually pretty or any good, really. Maybe minus, of course, the show closing angle, but I thought it was a really fucking great show. I thought it was really entertaining and really engaging pretty much from start to finish. There was a couple matches, of course, that maybe didn't hit me as much as I maybe had hoped for, maybe didn't go the way that I thought necessarily would, but that could be a good or a bad thing. And at least with a couple of the matches in particular, we did get at least a starting point and maybe a direction where it's going to be leading to. So we'll obviously be getting into all that going forward, but thank you guys so much for checking out the review and for either viewing on YouTube or listening to the audio version on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that good shit out there. I really appreciate it. So, like I said before, in the past, we've actually obviously done a few video recordings in the past with Elvis Escobar from the Enter the Live podcast. So shout out to him. He's always great to have on the show. But today I don't know. I just had a little bit of extra time, thankfully. Schedule's been a little bit crazy, so I wanted to sit down and kind of go over the Rumble. And I figured with this, we need a little bit of visual things to kind of throw in there as well. So wherever you're listening or viewing this, as always, I appreciate that. And you can follow the show on Twitter at @kickashpodcast_. You can follow me on Twitter personally at ASHMANNS. But with all that out of the way, we will get into the show specifically. And like I said, well, first in the past, I'm a huge fan of pay-per-views, PLEs on Saturdays, so shout out to them for having one on Saturday also. Fucking love that. It's great. It's something different about a Saturday pay-per-view for me. Just it's nice being able to wake up on a Sunday and just kind of like regroup and maybe watch the pay-per-view back, depending on your schedule, and especially with football coming on today and things like that. So it's nice. It's nice to have that kind of a weekend. But with all that out of the way, the pay-per-view or PLE last night was from airing in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome, which is a massive stadium from what it looks like. I had a few friends who actually made it out to the show, so shout out to them. Super, super happy for you guys. And you looks like, well, obviously, my opinion, it was a pretty good show, like I said from the beginning, but it looks like you guys are going to definitely have some memories to take back, which is pretty dope, especially that ending, which obviously you can see in the background here. And I'll throw up the picture a little bit later on in the show here itself, but man, like that ending was just something else, it's probably the best storyline that we have had in quite some time, and I don't know really if there's much argument for that, you know what I mean? With the way that the Bloodline story has played out for the past, what has it been, 2 years now since Roman has come back? Literally from his return and him winning the championship at SummerSlam. What year was that? We're in 23. What was that? 2020? 21? Whatever year it was. Whatever SummerSlam that was, when he won the championship and just pretty much began this dominant reign, with the addition of Paul Heyman and then Jey Uso, the Usos, and then overtime Solo, and then obviously Sami Zayn. It's just the story itself is something that, as I was watching the ending, well, early this morning, because Peacock fucking sucks. Okay, let me just get this out of the way. I came home. I was working last night. I came home, gosh, maybe 11:45, and apparently the show was still going on. So I was like, okay, bet. So I'll just at least start from the beginning. Just kind of obviously not catch up, but just start from the beginning and kind of maybe be able to just see where others had because got a few text messages that from people who didn't realize that we're watching the pay-per-view live, right? So I kind of knew of one or two things that are happening, but at least to be able to start from the beginning, right? And not just dive right into where they were at live, because at that point they were, I believe it was right at the end of the Roman and Kevin Owens match. So obviously the main event. Right towards the end they had actually concluded, but it just sucked, you know what I mean? And the main thing that pissed me off was that you can only rewind for like 2 hours or some shit. And once it doesn't matter like what stopping point it's at. It's like a 2 or maybe 2.5 hour cutting point. And then once you get to that end of that, you have to start wherever that cuts off at. So for instance, like I rewound like maybe 2.5 hours, whatever it was. It was the middle of the women's Rumble match. So it's like I don't really want to start here because they may mention what happened in the past. So not that that's y'all's problem, but just food for thought. And for the future, if you are late to a WWE PLE, and obviously you're watching on Peacock unless you're overseas and you still have the network, which I'm super jealous of if you do, you just gotta wait for it to end. And that's the shitty part too, because once it ends, they literally wait like, or it takes them probably close to 2 hours. The PLE itself in its entirety, you weren't able to watch it back until about 3 a.m. Eastern time here in the US. So it was very frustrating to say the least, because I was very eager to watch it, you know what I mean? But my little personal rant and gripe out of the way. But yeah, just note to yourselves, guys, in the future, if you're, like I said, tuning in late, you might as well just wait till the next morning, as much as it sucks to say. And obviously avoid social media and all that, which is actually kind of difficult, which is a whole other story. But anyway, getting back to the show itself, like I said, thought it was a really good show. The pay-per-view PLE opened with a video package from the musician Hardy, which I had never heard of. But whatever floats your boat. It was also we had Michael Cole and Corey Graves out at ringside, and then the first surprise of the night, which I was super fucking excited for, was Pat McAfee. Dude made his entrance, and Michael Cole seemed legit surprised. And at this point, with Michael Cole having the freedom that he has, which I'll kind of reference later on as well, I don't see any reason why he would lie about that, or fib, or whatever. It was dope. I was super fucking happy for Michael Cole. Sorry, I'm cursing a lot today, guys. I don't know. It's been a long day already so far. Kind of fun, but anyway, it's just something different, obviously, with this Michael Cole, right? He obviously has more freedom. And at one point during the show, I forget exactly where it was, I think Corey had mentioned something like, what are you looking at, Michael, or look up Michael, or something like that. And Michael Cole had mentioned, well, I've been told for the past 25 years to look at the monitor in front of my face, so that's what I've been doing, or something like that. And I was like, yo, like, good for you, Michael. Like, I love this Michael Cole, and I love the re-energized version of him that we've gotten. And I hope he stays around for another 5, 10, 15 years, however long he wants. But gosh, he's been around for obviously 25 years. So if you think about it, 5, 10 more years, he could go on to have a 40-year career. Good for him, good for him. But anyway, obviously I just had to reference Michael Cole and Pat McAfee just reuniting, I guess. And Corey Graves, I was actually really surprised with the trio and them as a tandem, a 3-person tandem in the commentating booth. They actually did really well. I was really surprised, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously I figured Pat and Michael would just gel like no time had passed, but I was kind of interested to see how Corey Graves would react, and to see if he would kind of butt heads a little bit more with Pat, or if we were going to maybe eventually get the story between him and Pat in the eventual match, which I think would be really cool to see. Just something fun, and especially since Corey Graves has been cleared now, I think 6 months ago or something like that. So shout out to him. That's awesome. But yeah, like I just really enjoyed it, and I hope we get that more in the future coming up. But getting to the show now, we started the pay-per-view off PLE with the 30-man Royal Rumble, which I was surprised, to be honest with you guys. I just kind of expected the Rumble match, or at least one of them, which this year, most likely the men's match, to end the Rumble. But seeing that it started, and I guess looking back, it was definitely the right call as well. But again, was kind of surprised by it. But I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it, especially with this year's one that we got. Because if it was last year's, maybe a different story. But this year's was actually really good, and I'm digging the start off with this one. But the number one entrant was Gunther, who was joined in the entrance area by Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. They did not accompany him to the ring. They let him do his thing. But I love the visual. I love Walter Gunther's music, him just standing there in the all white background. I guess I've tweaked it now, but I just love it. I love everything about Walter Gunther. He's definitely the future. And man, he fucking had a great night at the Rumble. He had a showcasing night going from number one all the way to the end. A little bit of a spoiler, but at this point you probably know the results. But obviously he didn't win, but making it to the end, the final two. But he's just he was one of those that I think a lot of us were maybe concerned about and maybe were hesitant with him coming up to the main roster, obviously when Vince was still in charge. But man, like this dude, he's been protected, been presented in just the almost perfect light, right? Like he's been dominant, but not the perception that he's completely unbeatable and that every match is a given, especially with the matches with him and Sheamus. There was a good chance where, for instance, Sheamus, you could make a case for Sheamus coming out as the victor, and it was very believable. You know what I mean? Like the match itself, it was believable. So not a lot of guys Gunther's style and size can pull off something like that. So just seeing him do it like night in and night out, and just the reign that he's gone on so far with being the Intercontinental Champion, it's just so fun to watch. So all the love to Gunther. But that led to obviously number two coming out, who, speaking of Sheamus, was Sheamus. So a fun way to start off the Rumble. Sheamus's birthday was apparently last night, so happy birthday to you, my dude. Number three later was The Miz. He kind of waited and hesitated to get into the Rumble match itself, which, to be honest with you, I don't know why more people don't. Like, there's no rule stating that you have to go in immediately. So when people, like, make a mad dash to the ring, I'm always like, first of all, like, you're wasting your energy, which the commentators did mention a lot on commentary last night, so shout out to them. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, I take my time, like, I don't know. That's just me. Number four was Kofi Kingston, followed by number five, Johnny Gargano. There was a little bit of question whether Johnny was going to make it. I think he had a little bit of a shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken. So it's good to see him back. I think right after that, the number six entrant was Xavier Woods. In the spot with Xavier and Kofi, teasing that they were going to go against each other, which at first I thought it was cool. I was like, yeah, it's, God, how long have they been together now? So it'd be cool to actually see them have a friendly, competitive fight. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, especially Kofi being on the mountaintop and making it to WrestleMania and winning the big one there, you would think that, okay, like, he's going to want, this is his opportunity, right? Like, yeah, throughout the remaining however many days of the year, like before you get to like the Rumble season, depending on, obviously it's 365 days of the year, right? But depending on how, if you just start focusing on the Rumble in January, for instance, like you as a wrestler, right? It just depends on how seriously I think you take the build to the Royal Rumble and then the start to WrestleMania season, obviously leading to Mania itself. I get kind of maybe joking and I get like the character and where the New Day comes from, and kind of like, just not making light of everything, but the pancake shit, like you if you're watching this, the New Day shit, right? But you would just think that, okay, like this is one of those nights in matches and moments throughout the year where you're gonna take it seriously, so to me, when we saw that glimpse of them kind of just going at it, but then they just turned it into, it was I think it was Kofi who jumped onto Xavier, and then they were acting like they were going to do like a not reverse, but they were going to do a wheelbarrow, and then they just started smacking each other's ass. It was just kind of like I don't know, I was just kind of disappointed by that. Like, I don't really know why it just kind of stood out to me as much as it did, but I just remember thinking like, man, like, okay, cool, and then just like the high and then the low just hit like so quickly there for me. But nothing major, nothing like, oh my god, New Days, whatever. But and I get they're not the focal point. They're the NXT Tag Team Champions. Neither of them even had a shot of winning the Rumble match this year. I get it, and that's not the story. And I understand, but I don't know. Just it would have been cool to just see at least a little moment there. But moving on to number 7, we had Karrion Kross, who came out with Scarlett for their black and white entrance, of course. It's kind of surprised we still got the black and white entrance, but nothing major there. I was looking back at the Rumble match itself. I'm very intrigued to see how strong they keep pushing Karrion Kross. Of course, he's involved with the storyline with Rey Mysterio right now, but I don't know. I was kind of surprised he wasn't shown at least a little bit more dominant throughout the Rumble match itself. Number 8 led to Chad Gable, who entered the ring and did suplexes on Gargano and Kingston. Gable tried to perform one on Woods, who avoided it, and then Woods shooshed Gable. They actually ended up sparring, going back and forth a little bit, and that reminds me of another gripe that I had was the fucking camera cuts. Like, I don't know. Obviously, Kevin Dunn, right, is the head of production there, and I don't whatever, but the camera cuts, man, like it cut away from so many cool and key moments. For instance, like this one, like I wanted to see them kind of go back and forth and to see them actually perform wrestling maneuvers on each other, and just kind of grapple for a bit. And the second it started getting good, like it cut away, and a lot of the cuts was to something dumb, like the crowd or like just an irrelevant shot. You know what I mean? Like just wrestlers not really doing much. So it's like I don't know, like between that and there was another one that stood out when Bailey was making her entrance. She had grabbed, obviously this is way off topic, but she was making her way down the aisle and she had grabbed a sign and she was going to rip it up. And the second she grabbed it and was going to rip it, the fucking camera cut away. And it's like, bro, like little things like this, like add to their story and add to their character and add to them being a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like that's their goal. So it's like you cutting that moment and taking it away, like again, like, and there's more that I'll probably come back to me as I go through the notes here, but like, it's just kind of a bummer to me. And again, nothing major, obviously, where we have these little gripes, they get great camera angles and great shots. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like it ruined the whole thing, but it was just like, God, man, like go back, like stop. Just like I don't need to see the fans. Like I don't care about their reaction. Like I can hear it, I can feel it, like I had my own reaction. Like just let me see the show, but whatever, another crap out of the way. Number 9 entrant was Drew McIntyre, who got a pretty decent reaction, and he kind of an interesting little throwback there, but the 2020 Royal Rumble was in Texas as well. So it was, I guess, if you were putting money on it, maybe a little bit of a reason to throw a little bit more money on McIntyre, but I don't know why you would. In this situation, at least, no offense. But him and Cross kind of went back and forth there for a little bit, which led to the number 10th entrant being Santos Escobar. Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro came out dressed in suits, and then they headed to the back, which I liked. I liked the fact that, for instance, them, Imperium, the rest of the Brawling Brutes, Ridge Harlan, and Pete Dunne not Pete Dunne, Butch. You guys know. None of them came to the ring. You know what I mean? They all, and MVP later on for that matter, they all just came out to the entrance and then went to the back. So I like that. No outside interference, unless I'm forgetting one. But I just like little things like that. You know what I mean? Kind of makes it feel a little bit more important. Saves them a shit ton of steps too, because that entrance ramp aisle was fucking long. Like I don't know how many feet or yards it was, but that was massive. And shout out to all the people who ran that distance. Like I would be fucking winded. So y'all are something else. But Escobar came down to the ring and was caught by Sheamus with a kick on the apron, and then or caught Sheamus on the excuse me, Escobar caught Sheamus with a kick on the apron, then went up top and dove onto Gable. Number 11 entrant was Angelo Dawkins. Sheamus had dumped Woods over the top rope, but he skinned the cat and remained in the match. Moments later, Gunther blasted Woods with a boot that knocked him off the apron to eliminate him. Kingston performed a standing double stomp on Escobar. Right after that, Gunther sent Kingston over the top rope, but Kingston fell onto an office chair at ringside. The broadcast team questioned whether he was actually eliminated, which he was not, because obviously he landed on the chair. So that was our spot for the night. Number 12 ended up being Brock Lesnar, which got a pretty big reaction from the crowd, obviously. Just something about his music, man. When you can feel how you want to feel about Brock, but when his music hits, it hits you different, you know what I mean? Like you're excited right off the bat. So just he's a star, and great music. I don't know if Jim Johnston was the one who had produced and created his theme. I don't know if he was still around back in the day, because remember, guys, Lesnar's been in the business essentially. He started back in 2002, right? So 21 years ago now. So I don't remember when Johnston actually left, but I'm actually very interested to find that out. But not the point here. But it's just something else seeing Lesnar. Like I was going through my notes here because I was trying to see if I wrote down typed how many pay-per-view matches Lesnar been in, but I didn't. But I think his first one was 2003. So again, just talking about the longevity, obviously, right? Like Lesnar has a very different schedule, very different career, so he hasn't obviously been in the majority of the Rumbles since then. But just the longevity, man, and just the star power, and just Lesnar being Lesnar. It's we're fortunate, and he's gonna be one of those that when he's gone, like we're gonna feel it. But moving on to number 13, lucky number 13 was Bobby Lashley, which is fitting so him and Lesnar can kind of resume their rivalry there. It was actually kind of cool though because at one point Lesnar hoisted up Lashley for an F5, but Lashley stepped away and then clotheslined Lesnar over the top rope to eliminate him. So Bobby Lashley ended up eliminating Brock Lesnar, and Lesnar only lasted barely 3 minutes in the match. So that's massive. And look, say what you want about Lesnar, but dude is fucking brilliant as a businessman too. Like, just think of his schedule, right? Like last night he came out and worked not even 5 minutes. Fucking brilliant, man. Got paid millions. It was probably home before the whole pay-per-view PLE even ended. So fucking brilliant, man. And it fit too. It worked. Like that's the crazy thing about it. Like everything, like you could say, like, oh yeah, like he has a shit schedule, like and whatever. But it's impactful and it works. And I think that's probably why it pisses us off a lot because it's like, man, like, can I get that schedule? Can I get that pay? Like how did you do what you did? And obviously Lesnar is just a beast, pun intended, in himself. Like he's a different breed of human. But moving on, number 14 was Baron Corbin. JBL came out with Corbin and then also headed to the back, which again I loved. Lesnar continued to throw a fit at ringside. Once he was eliminated, dude was fucking pissed off. He grabbed the steel chairs and just slammed it onto the announce table that was, right there at ringside. I'm trying to think, was there two announce tables? Was the Spanish one there? I don't recall. Doesn't really matter. But he destroyed the announce table for the one that Cole and McAfee and Graves were sitting at. So he was still throwing a fit. He picked up the ring steps, slammed it into the broadcast table. When Corbin arrived at ringside, Lesnar, I keep on saying Lashley, Lesnar clotheslined him and then gave him an F5, which was just tremendous. Like, fucking Corbin, man. Adam Pearce and a bunch of producers showed up at ringside, and Lesnar shoved the referee over the barricade, which he'll get fined for, right? But it's cool, like it's just always fun to see Lesnar just throwing shit. So I'll never not be happy to see that. Number 15 was Seth Rollins, though. Seth freaking Rollins made his way out. Corbin was still down at ringside once Rollins had arrived, and Rollins ended up picking up Corbin, throwing him into the ring, and then super kicked him and eliminated him. Super kicked him and then clotheslined him over the top rope to eliminate him. So Corbin officially was entered and then eliminated. So I guess technically his match time was probably less than a minute as well, I'd imagine. Maybe around that mark for Corbin. Which, thinking back on it too, like, I think when he was like the lone wolf version, God, and it's crazy to think he had long hair, right? But I thought maybe he would have been more of a main event threat, at least starting off. But in the same token too, he's a character and he's a position that you need. He's someone that a very valuable piece. So he gets a lot of shit, and I don't know why. I'm a big fan of Corbin. Or I appreciate what he does, I guess is probably a better way to phrase it. But moving on, number 16 ended up being Otis. Gargano was put down by Otis, who then performed the slam on Sheamus and McIntyre before ripping off his shirt. Number 17 was scheduled to be Rey Mysterio. His music so great. His music hit, but he didn't come out. So we're all kind of left wondering like what's going on with Rey. There was no cut to the backstage area, no nothing. Even the commentators were kind of questioning like I wish they would have taken it a little bit more seriously. Just more concerned and as opposed to like, oh, did it get lost? Like, where is it coming? Like, where, just that was the only thing that kind of just I don't know. I wish they, like I said, would have taken it a little bit more seriously or just a different route. But with that being said, after the 2-minute, minute and a half, 2-minute time frame concluded, our number 18th entrant ended up being none other than Dominic Mysterio. Dom came out wearing one of his father's masks. It was one of the yellow ones. Dom took the mask off and then tore it up. this is one of my notes. I This was probably one of the worst ones for me. So when Dominic took the mask off and started tearing it up, the production team missed. Well, okay, this wasn't it. I got a little bit ahead of myself. The production team missed McIntyre and Sheamus eliminating Otis, but they replayed it. Cole had threw a fit on commentary because Ray had told Dom that he wouldn't give Ray wouldn't give Dom the mask until he earned it, and Cole said Dom obviously had earned it. Dominic was walking around and warmed up at ringside while Sheamus encouraged him to enter the match. He was kind of just like walking around, just kind of playing chicken with Sheamus and just kind of just like instigating him a little bit, just kind of he just being a piece of shit, right? And just kind of being that prick outside. But when Sheamus turned his back, Dominic entered the ring and went after him, but Sheamus pretty much just no sold it and went after Dom. But the thing about that I was gonna say that really pissed me off is just I don't know, like with the whole Dominic thing, like with the whole entrance, the fact that Rey Mysterio never made his way out, we never saw or never heard from Rey throughout the entire night. That's the thing, like that's what you have to sell, like that's what you hone in on. Dominic coming out, making his entrance, holding like with the mask on, ripping it up, like that whole thing, like that should have been more impactful and not worrying about like and I guess the timing it's very hard to do too, right, in the match because when you're in the ring wrestling, it's hard to know like at what point the wrestler who's making their way out, like like the camera cuts and everything like that, but it's just I don't know. I just had a real issue with the camera cuts and the production in that regard last night. But everything else, like I said, guys, the shots that we got, especially with a couple of the points to the sign and shit like that, which I'll throw up here. Just great shots, great shots. But the number 19th entrant ended up being Elias, and the crowd was just completely flat. Like it was kind of sad, they just kind of went mid and went mild for him. But once Elias made his way into the ring, he slammed his guitar over the back of Gunther, which was not a great idea. McIntyre and Sheamus performed a simultaneous Claymore and Bro kick on Elias and then eliminated him, which just looked fucking brutal. Like it looked like, man, Elias, he earned his pay last night because that just fucking looked brutal. Number 20 was Finn Balor. Balor made his way out to the ring, and it was just in time too because Dominic was kind of getting the shit kicked out of him, and he was on the verge of being eliminated, but Balor saved him, thankfully. Because I love Judgment Day, man. I just love this group. So that being said, number 21 ended up being Booker T. Cole said Booker being in the Rumble brought back bad memories for him and explained that Booker T eliminated him from his only Rumble appearance. Booker threw a couple of kicks at opponents and then hit a bookend on Balor. Booker did a spin-a-rooney, which got a big reaction, which still looks good, so shout out to Book, and obviously he's from Texas. Gunther grabbed him, though, and threw him over the top rope to eliminate Booker, which obviously fans were not happy with. But again, Booker T didn't last long either. Which is interesting. But it was cool to see him, shout out Book. Number 22 entrant ended up being Damian Priest, which has the Judgment Day and the trio itself in the Rumble all together. Gunther was eating Gunther had some nasty scrapes on his back, which was kind of more noticeable at this point too, which I think was from the Elias guitar shot, which Gunther, man, he's a tough dude, man. Tough dude. Of course, around that point, the Judgment Day, like I said, they were all in the match together, so they started working together, which, duh. Number 23 ended up being Montez Ford, Jordan number. Dominic has survived. Ford attempting to eliminate him, though. Ford was wearing boxing shorts, I think, last night, or some type of, I think it was boxing shorts, either boxing or basketball shorts. Pretty certain it was boxing. But it was cool. It was a different attire. I liked him, and dude is fucking jacked, man. Like he's putting in work. But Montez Ford was going after Priest. Balor tossed Ford over the top rope. Ford did the little skin the cat thing, but then dropped Balor with a punch. Priest picked up Ford in a choke slam position and then threw him back to the ringside where Ford landed on his feet for his elimination. One way, and one way to look at it shows Ford's athleticism, right? Made it look super easy, but man, like it sucks. Like I'm ready for Ford. Maybe this year and next year, just getting more of a singles push and just kind of getting more more serious and more just eyes on him as a single star. Because man, he could be a fucking star. And not saying that I want him and Angelo Dawkins to break up, because I'm a fan of the Street Profits. Obviously, they're a kick-ass tag team, but man, like, just something about Ford. And I've been saying it for I don't even know how long. Like, him and Bianca are just a power couple waiting to be, I don't want to say exploited on WWE TV, but just fucking just enshrined and just promoted and just kind of like in the Miz and Maurice, but just taken seriously and amplified. Just with the class and just, I don't know, like I could see them having a reality show. Like I could see Ford and Bianca Belair being the Miz and Maurice, but like I said, taken more seriously and just in a different light and just shot to the moon. The sky's the limit for Montez, and I'm ready for that rocket to start taking off. But hopefully that's soon. Hopefully that's this year or next year coming up. Number 4 ended up being Edge, making his not so surprise return. We just kind of figured it was going to be around this point. Very happy to see him back. He hadn't appeared since I think it was like October, I believe it was. But Edge had speared Priest and Balor. Dominic sent Edge into the ropes in the 619 position, but Edge recovered and speared Dom. Edge eliminated Priest and then Balor. Edge and Rollins ended up squaring off to kind of do a nice little throwback there for their trilogy of matches that they had, 2 years ago, maybe ish, or something like that, year and a half ago. Dominic ended up hitting Edge with a forearm. Edge and Dom had, or Edge had Dominic on the ropes after that when Priest and Balor pulled Edge over the top to eliminate him. Priest and Balor put the boots to Edge, and then Rollins ended up going after Dominic. Number 12, what did I say? Number 12? Number 25 entrant ended up being Austin Theory. Edge ended up fighting Balor and Priest in the entranceway when Rhea Ripley came out and attacked Edge. Then all of a sudden, Beth Phoenix made her appearance, walked out, and gave Rhea Ripley a spear, which I thought was a sign for my prediction, but I was wrong, which I'm cool with. Number 26 ended up being entrant Omos for that matter. And just not with it, man. Omos just hasn't grown on me. He just hasn't grown on me yet. So I'm very happy he didn't last long. 27 ended up being Strowman, so the two of the big men went after it. Traded shots back and forth. Strowman ended up eliminating Omos, and that was pretty much it. I think Omos was out there for maybe 2-3 minutes, something like that. Maybe a little bit longer, actually, obviously, because 2-minute interval. So probably about 4 or 5 minutes. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of Omos, and I've tried, but whatever. Number 20 ended up being Ricochet. Cole pointed out that Ricochet and Strowman are tag team partners, and they are in contention. I think it's a tournament going on. Yeah. I don't know why I haven't. To be honest with you guys, I didn't see SmackDown this past week. But I'm pretty certain they're in line for a tag team championship shot in the future. So we'll see. It's a weird pairing for me. I get the big man, little man type shit, but I don't know. I don't know. Cole had mentioned also, though, that Ricochet eliminated that goofy Top Dollar to qualify for the Rumble match. And between this and then the commentating that from Cole that we'll get in the women's match referencing Top Dollar, I'm here for it. It's just fucking entertaining as shit. I don't know where it comes from and what it's about, but I love it. Number 29 ended up being Logan Paul. The fans booed him like crazy, which thank you. It's make the dude a heel. But that brought us down to Rollins, Theory, Dominic, and Ricochet being left in the ring, I believe, at that point. They all started to gang up on Logan Paul simultaneously for a moment. Logan Paul ended up hitting Ricochet with a buckshot lariat, which they just referred to as that move in WWE, which is just hilarious. But he hits a good buckshot, so shout out to him. He did take a nice monster slam from Braun Strowman, so I'm sure that did not feel great. Number 30 ended up being none other than Cody Rhodes, which was not a surprise. It was a surprise in the sense that he was number 30. I kind of expected him to be maybe slated earlier in the match to kind of have even more of a story to build to that big moment of him winning the Rumble, but didn't end up being that way. Came out at number 30, but I still think it worked, right? I think he still he did the work, pun intended. and it ended up being a good ending to the match. So that completes our entrance for the match itself. So everyone who is going to come out is slated and out there. That led to, I believe, yeah, once Cody got into the ring, he hit a Cody cutter on Theory. So he and Theory just kind of went at each other at first. And then he removed his weight belt and tossed it into the crowd, which always makes me kind of nervous because it's that shit, someone's not paying attention, which you should be. Then clock you in the face, man, in the head, and get a nasty gash with the buckle on it. But I love that he does it, though. Cody is very giving and very selfless. So very, very cool of him to do. Dominic had kicked Cody and then performed 2 of the 3 Amigos suplexes on him, but Cody had stopped him and hit a crossroads on Dom and then eliminated him from the match. So Dominic, held his ground for a little while. He, did his thing. Cody went on to eliminate Strowman, but the thing that I would really want to reference before we get to the ending of the match is the spot between Logan Paul and Ricochet. Fucking tremendous, okay? Logan Paul is on the left, Ricochet is on the right, standing on the outside of the apron. They're kind of looking at each other, talking shit across the ring. All of a sudden, they both leap to the top of the rope, jump, and in midair just collide. And both of their bodies kind of doing like a crossbody, just legit collide in midair and just fall. It was the craziest fucking thing to see. And I props and kudos and all that shit to Logan Paul and Ricochet for being able to do that, to nail the timing. Logan Paul's a fucking just monster, okay? Like for someone in his position to not be a full-time, even part-time wrestler, to do this when he's had 4 matches now. Fucking insane. So imagine if he was doing this even semi part-time, full-time, like he would be a real contender, he would be a real threat. So I don't know. That was just fucking impressive and just something you have to go out of your way to see. It's obviously not that long of a clip, but man, it was fucking great. So shout out to Logan, Paul, and Ricochet for that. That was just fucking tremendous. But getting down to the end of the match here, it ended up being Cody Rhodes and Gunther facing off as the final 2. Gunther ran the distance. He went from number 1 to number 30, which I think Cole had mentioned. He was unsure if anyone else had gone the distance, and it had ever been down to the number 30th entrant and the number 1 entrant as the final 2 remaining, which I don't know if it has, but very cool statistic if it hasn't. And again, shout out to Gunther. Dude put in the work last night. He is a main eventer just waiting to blossom. And I'm loving that they're not rushing it. He is slated perfectly. And I think to see him go up against Cody and to really put Cody to the test and that brutal, because Gunther is a hard hitting dude. It was good, and it really kind of, like I mentioned, really made Cody earn that victory. So the match itself ended up going 71 minutes and 42 seconds, with of course Cody Rhodes being your victor. And a couple shots that I thought was pretty cool. And it was a nice little homage when Cody was celebrating. Of course, he's very emotional, and I love the little things that Cody does. We'll throw it up here on the screen. The first one was a little gunshot, little reference there. If you guys are watching on YouTube, that of course is a callback to Kenny Omega. If you guys, I'm sure are aware, like I said, if you're watching this, you're most likely a diehard fan. So it's very cool to see a nice little throwback to Kenny and the Bullet Club there, and then also what you see here with the Too Sweet. Just it's really cool, something small and something that he didn't need to do, first of all, right? But that it's cool to see him be allowed to do it, and it's not a big deal, and it's not like, oh my god, like he's not gonna get in trouble, like that's not gonna be the story coming out of that is Cody get, it's not a thing. It's just cool, and it's something small and it's something minor. And then to hear him reference it later on in the press conference, which they had immediately after the PLE, which we'll get into. I think it's just really cool, and it's just a fun sight to see. So shout out to WWE, for them doing this and just being cool with little things like that. And maybe they didn't know until it happened, right? But I don't know. To me, it wouldn't have happened maybe 2 years ago, maybe not even that long ago. So of course, again, your victor is Cody Rhodes, which is how it needed to happen. don't think it's much of a surprise there. Of course, the pitch was made for Sammy to win, but you didn't need Sammy to even be in the match, and I'm very happy he wasn't. Moving on, and we'll kind of speed through this here, guys. Number 2 on the match card was the Mountain Dew pitch black match, featuring, of course, Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. It ended up being what I thought it was going to be, kind of like a black light laser type thing. Not laser necessarily, but neon lights, which is pretty cool. Visually, it was what it was. Wyatt pretty much took offensive control from the beginning. It backing up that Bray Wyatt entrance is always very cool to see. So I can only imagine what this version of his entrance is like in person. So very cool to see. But again, Wyatt took control and offensive control pretty early on into the match. They ended up making the way outside where Wyatt stood on the ring steps next to the barricade, and he tried to pull Knight over because like obviously pulling him over the barricade. LA Knight was like where the fans are. He tried to pull him over, but LA Knight slipped away, and then Wyatt had actually slipped down the stairs there a little bit. So whatever they were going for, they weren't able to do. But right after that, Wyatt was able to kind of regroup and get back on the steps. Knight was able to leap onto the barricade and speared Wyatt through the broadcast table, which had like some neon confetti on it, which I don't really know what I don't know. I think probably that what they were going for was more like a slam or something like that, and then it probably would have shot up like that. But whatever, it was cool. It was fine. After that, Wyatt had pulled out a toolbox and set it on the apron, and then returned to the ring. Wyatt tossed Knight over the toolbox and then threw the ropes to the floor. He returned with a multicolored kendo stick type thing, where Wyatt had then cut him off. I hit this. Cut him off from hitting him with the kendo stick, obviously, and his sister Abigail, and scored the 1, 2, 3. It ended up being like a 5-minute match, which I was kind of surprised by, and surprised that it was more one-sided. But at one point, I'll throw it up here on the screen for you guys again. It was it was quite the visual. This was the visual of Bray, right? He obviously had some whether it was paint or whatever, but he reminded me of Jeff Hardy when Jeff Hardy used to come out years and years ago, back in 2003, I think, and had like the paint. The word is escaping me, but guys know what I'm talking about. The paint that was like reactive in the black lights, right? So if you could see this, guys, and the contacts that Bray had in, it was just super fucking creepy, and he obviously had some girls in with some fangs on it. So just the whole visual was really dope. Bray looked like a fucking creep and a monster, and it's just the match itself was okay. It was what it was, but I think the after the match portion of it was obviously this pay-per-view itself was very storyline driven. So that was the kind of wait and see moment, right? And to see how it was going to progress from there. So after the match, Wyatt had put on a mask, and after that, LA Knight ran to the ringside. He was like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Wyatt followed him though. Knight tried to hit Wyatt with the kendo stick, or he did rather, but Wyatt continued to walk towards him. Knight hit Wyatt with the kendo stick a few more times, but had no effect on Bray. Ended up putting Knight in the mandible claw in the production area, and like there was like a crate until LA Knight passed out. Conveniently enough, right as LA Knight passed out, Uncle Howdy appeared on a platform right above Bray, who looked up at him. Wyatt turned away, and then Uncle Howdy leapt off of the platform and put Knight through a staged area that exploded. And then right after that, the Wyatt symbol flashed to kind of end that segment, the moth. It was something. They actually showed a replay that showed Uncle Howdy kind of landing beside LA Knight and not actually on him. But shit happens, and Uncle Howdy's an old man. Like you got to be careful. He can't always like hit things perfectly. We should be proud and happy and appreciate the fact that he even did what he did. So, just the impact of him landing beside LA Knight was enough. Imagine if he landed on top of LA Knight. So, that segment was what it was. Like I said, it was kind of what I was expecting. I'm just ready to see what this ends up doing for LA Knight moving forward. I was wrong in my prediction. I thought the story was going to be the agony of defeat for Bray, but it wasn't. And I guess Uncle Howdy is now working with Bray again. So it's the story's getting kind of confusing, and I said I was gonna wait and see. So I'm hoping it kind of shakes out and we see what this is going to be for and mean for Mania. But I'm very intrigued to see how it plays out. So we'll see. They announced the attendance was at 51,338. So cool beans for them. Next match on the card was Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. Bianca's, of course, your champion going in and retaining. Not really going to get into this match too much. It was just kind of a basic, straightforward match and what you would expect. I think they got like maybe 7-8 minutes. It ended with Alexa Bliss going for the Sister Abigail, but Belair blocked it and hit the KOD for the win. I was kind of expecting more story in the match itself, and by that I mean just the version of Alexa Bliss, right? The dark version of her, and I thought that was gonna kind of play more into the match itself, but it didn't. After the match, we just got a video package with footage airing from it was like a playground with clips. Of course, like if you're airing a spooky playground, you have to have the swing moving with no one in it, right? And it was just past clips of Alexa Bliss from all the versions of like shit that she did with Bray, the visual of her at Mania with like the black goo, whatever was dripping down her face. And we get get a clip of the video itself, and you would see the video, and then it would be thrown back to Alexa just kind of reacting and to the video itself. So very intrigued to see again what that ends up meaning for Alexa. And I think her losing maybe the story, well, obviously the story for her is the agony of defeat, and she's kind of getting to her breaking point, and she's probably going to snap back into that dark side. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think that it was what it was. I'm just surprised that, like I said, the darkness of Alexa didn't come into play more in the match. But moving on to that, we have the 30 women Royal Rumble match. Number one ended up being Rhea Ripley. She came out holding her ribs to sell the Beth Phoenix Spear, which that was the extent of it. Beth didn't come out unless I missed something, but I don't think it did. Beth didn't make another appearance in the Rumble itself, which I was kind of surprised by. But number two ended up being Liv Morgan, which they obviously have a history there, so they started off the match. Number three was Dana Brooke. Not really much there, but I mentioned that Dana Brooke, that this was Morgan's sixth Rumble match, and noted that she's appeared at each of the women's Rumble matches themselves, so that was pretty cool. Dana Brooke entered and hit a missile drop kick to enter the ring. She hit that on Ripley and on Morgan. Number four ended up being Emma. This was Emma's first Rumble appearance, and Cole had recalled rather that she was released by the company just months before the first women's Rumbles match. So it's cool for her to get her official Rumble appearance. Number five was Shayna Baszler, which I'm still so salty and bitter with what they're doing with Shayna Baszler. I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest with you guys. Number six ended up being Bayley, who was my pick to win. I don't know. I still stand by my pick. I'm very, very excited to see what ended up happening, and to see how that kind of just transgresses after or in the next few weeks coming up, but we'll see. Number seven ended up being B-Fab from Hit Row, which was one of my favorite parts of the night because Cole said it was B-Fab's first match, but that she was accompanied by Top Dollar and Ashanti the Adonis, of course, who headed back to the ring. But Cole had mentioned that he hopes that she didn't take any tips from Top Dollar, and she avoids the top rope. It's just fucking tremendous. Just I don't know where the hate and the back and forth stems from between Cole and Dollar, but I'm here for it. And Graves had even mentioned that Cole needs to watch out where Dollar will make a diss track against Cole, and Cole said that it'll probably be a number one hit or some shit like that. So just fucking tremendous, dude. I love this version of Michael Cole. Number 8 was the NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, which was a nice surprise. I didn't even really think about her making her way out, or making a surprise or making her debut in the Rumble match, but she is from the Texas area apparently as well, so that's pretty dope for her. So cool little moment for her. And she was also trained in the area. She's trained by Booker T, so very cool for her. And she had a really good showing in the Rumble match itself. And like Pat McAfee had said, this was just the beginning for her. And he was very impressed with her as well. That was the first time he had said that he had saw Roxanne in the ring. He was blown away by her. So it's cool just hearing Pat react, you know, because it's a genuine fan and he means it. So it's cool. Number 9 ended up being Dakota Kai. Number 10 was Io Sky to round out your damage control trio. Number 11 was Natalya, who had made her first appearance since Shayna Baszler had broke her nose, which I'm so sorry to say this, but I completely forgot about that. So it was cool to see Natalya back, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, Natalya. Number 12 was Candice LeRae. Cole mentioned that this was the third Rumble match for LeRae. Nothing really notable there, though. Number 13 was Zoe Stark from NXT, which is pretty cool to see her get a little spotlight in the Rumble itself. And she lasted a good amount of time as well. 14 was Xia Li. Nothing really notable there, sadly. They just haven't done anything with Xia Li. They brought her up probably way too prematurely, and they just really haven't done much with her since. And obviously, they, meaning the previous regime, she's been up there for what, a year now, I think, over a year. Just hasn't really done much. Or anything, really. Number 15 was Becky Lynch, who got a nice reaction. She obviously went after Damage Control for attacking her at Raw 30 and costing her pretty much the match from even happening, honestly. They took away her moment to regain some, you know, just some credit over Bayley. So it was kind of just a wash there, and they didn't really go back to it at all on Monday, and they obviously revisited it here, and I think that's going to be the story between Bayley and Becky going forward, since they obviously were the reason that that Becky Lynch ended up getting eliminated. Damage Control ended up pulling her off of the top rope, and they just fought into the broadcast table area, and it was what it was, just a continuation of their story. 16 ended up being Tegan Nox, 17 being Asuka, who got a big ovation, and she came out to new entrance music, which was okay, what's going on? And then she had a different mask on, which is very cool. But the thing was, when she removed the mask in the aisle, she had the clown style face paint on, and the version of Kana. And man, it's just, I'm fucking here for it. Kana is a darker, twisted version of Asuka from back in her Japan days. So it was just a different version of Asuka, and she was protected and portrayed differently, which I'm very, very thankful for. 18 ended up being Piper Niven. Yes, Piper Niven, not Dewdrop. Fucking happy for that. 19 was Tamina. 20 was Chelsea Green, making her surprise, quote unquote, debut return. 21 was Zelina Vega, who was dressed as Street Fighter 6 character, which I'm not familiar with, guys. I'm sorry about that. 22 ended up being Raquel Rodriguez, who grew up about 3.5 hours away, which is a dark horse pick for a lot of people. 27 was Michin, which is Mia Yim. 24 was Lacey Evans, which I'm just not here for Lacey Evans either, guys. 25 was Michelle McCool, who was sitting at ringside, literally in front row with her family there, her 2 daughters and her father. She kind of was like looking around like, oh shit, that's my music. Took off her jacket and got into the match and ended up eliminating Tamina. 27 was Indy Hartwell. Corey Graves kind of mentioned that Hartwell was one of the most powerful women in NXT, which is kind of funny to hear. Number 27 was, and I think he meant that like working out wise, like strength wise, but he should have clarified. 27 was Sonya Deville. 28 was Shotzi, who drove her tank out, but only drove it like not even like she drove it out to the entranceway and then stopped. Like, you would think with how long the fucking entrance way was, like she would have driven that to the ring. Like I would have saved my energy. Maybe she's cutting back on gas. I don't know. 29 was Nikki Cross, who made her. She fucking booked it. Okay, like this chick, the second her entrance music start, she booked it all the way from the entrance to the ring. Like I don't know. Shout out to her for not being winded after that. And she went in there, cleaned house, and then just did her fucking Nikki Cross shit. So a shout out to her. Number 30, though, which I was not thinking of at all. I had thought about this person maybe a week or two ago. I was like, I wonder what they're doing, because you haven't really heard much from them at all. And that was Nia Jax. She made her way back to WWE. She had been out for about a little over a year. And I loved it. All the remaining occupants in the ring just ganged up on her. She was acting like a big shot, like, come at me, girl, come at me. Like, I'm that bitch, I'm back, and all that shit. So it was cool to see her and them embrace that role, and then all the remaining competitors just gang up on her. And Rhea Ripley was kind of directing traffic. Like I think hit the. I think she ended up trying to hit her finisher on her, but she kind of barely got her up for the Riptide. But she did end up getting her a decent amount, which is pretty impressive. And they eliminated Jax over. I think it was like maybe 2-3 minutes, not long again in the match itself. That brought us down, kind of breezing through here a little bit, guys. The match ended up coming down to Ripley, Asuka, and Liv Morgan, who had been in there since the number 2 entrance as well. So shout out to Morgan, shout out to Liv Morgan for lasting as long as she did, but it ended up being here we go. It ended up coming down to Rhea Ripley and Asuka, and like I said, Morgan. It was kind of a cool way though. They were playing up the obviously the Asuka mist, right? So Asuka and Morgan were on the apron. Asuka was going to spray Rhea Ripley with the blue mist, which was pretty cool to see. And the paint that Asuka had on her face was blue variations as well, white and blue. The way Rhea did it though, she did this maneuver where she threw her legs back to the inside of the ring and kind of did this quick motion. So she avoided the blue mist, which ended up blinding Morgan, who was standing on the other side of Ripley. Ripley kicked Asuka, eliminated Asuka, and then ended up shortly after that eliminating Morgan to be the victor. And it was really cool. To be honest with you guys, like I thought that maybe we should go with Bayley winning. I wanted Ripley to have more focus going into the match itself, but it was fine. It was what it was. I don't think that I saw the Judgment Day story being something different, but I think you can kind of morph Rhea Ripley wanting to be a dominant women's champion and a dominant champion, period. And then I think it could kind of take a different turn. I think we could see Dom kind of being the puppy, and just kind of tagging along with Rhea, and just Rhea being the mommy, and just being the dominant female force that WWE needs. You know what I mean? So I think it could be really fun. And again, I had Bayley pegged to win, just because I thought that they weren't going to pull the trigger on Rhea Ripley yet. But I think just last night, between seeing her have a dominant performance going from number 1 to winning the whole thing, and then the presence that she had at the press conference, which I'll end up doing a separate show just for time purposes for you guys a little bit later. But she's just a star, man. And fucking Rhea Ripley is the future of the company, not just in the women's division. I think of the company, and I think they can really put all the eggs in her basket and just really just go from there. So I'm very, very excited to see what this means for Ripley. And I think, to be honest, I think the route to go is, because it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. I think if you have Ripley declare that she wants to face Charlotte, obviously with the past, Charlotte defeated her at WrestleMania, so she wants to avenge that loss. And then that gets Rhea Ripley on SmackDown, but that also gets Dominic on SmackDown as well, which is where Ray is. So I think you kind of have a twofer. You have Mommy going to SmackDown to face off against Charlotte at WrestleMania. You also have Dominic right there following along with Mommy and tormenting Ray, finally pushing Ray's buttons to get that father-son match at WrestleMania, which I just cannot wait for. It's going to be fucking phenomenal with this version of Dominic that we're getting. So we'll get to that obviously later on. Right after that match, had a little bit of ads, and then Hardy performed, so don't really care about that. If you do, you can go check it out, that clip somewhere on YouTube, I'm sure. But finally, we are at the main event, which is what we all were here for. Kevin Owens, of course, made his entrance first. Before his entrance, they did the recap video and kind of showing you the way that we got to this story, which was just so well done. Again, I chat on WWE's production earlier for the camera cuts, but the production that they do with the video packages is just next level. Just incomparable, really. But like I said, Kevin Owens made his way out first, and then we got the long, drawn-out Roman Reigns entrance, which is very well done. I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It really adds to the presence and to him being a star. Of course, we had Sami Zayn accompanying Roman Reigns and the wise man Paul Heyman right on his side as well. But the visual of that and knowing that that's most likely going to be the last time they make their entrance together, was just kind of impactful in and of itself. It was just kind of like, okay, this is it. Of course, we didn't have any signs then, but all of us as fans probably had that feeling once we saw them standing there, and seeing Sammy put up his one in the entrance was just kind of bittersweet. They made their way to the ring itself about 15 minutes later. No, just kidding there. But after Samantha Irving did the in-ring introductions for the match itself, the fans just erupted with Sammy Uso chants, and just the look on Sammy's face when the chants were going on, it was just tremendous. Like, he was kind of like, what do you mean to do? Sammy is just so great. The match started off with Reigns putting Owens, or taking Owens down with the shoulder block and just kind of toying with Owens. He was just kind of being a jerk, just saying, we're gonna kind of put Owens through it, and kind of take him through the ringer, and this is gonna be like a cakewalk, essentially. I'm not gonna go by move here because the match itself was okay. It was good. I don't want to say it was okay. The match itself was very good. It was good. And the story throughout the match was, what is Sammy going to do? Seeing Sammy's reactions to Kevin taking hits and Roman taking hits and near falls and things like that. It was the reactions and the expression from Sami Zayn, right, on the outside. The match itself was kind of the second, like an afterthought, which is crazy to say, right? But that's why we love wrestling, because it's the stories that get us emotionally and that get us hooked. Like, if we want to watch sports, we'll watch sports. And yes, sports have their own story, but wrestling is storyline, and wrestling is what you're doing in the ring. Yeah, but it's how you're telling it, and what the character and what it means for the characters, and what that loss means for that character, and what that victory means, and just everything in between. So it's just, that's a whole nother topic in and of itself. But the ending of the match is kind of in the aftermath, is obviously what we're all here for. After there was a point where, of course, the referee got knocked down. Kind of back up a little bit. Owens just so fucking athletic too. At one point, he hit a moonsault spot onto Reigns, but Reigns had moved. But just seeing him do that is just fucking amazing. He stood up and speared Owens for a near fall. Roman stood back up, jawed at the crowd for a little bit. And then he did his little war cry there. Reigns charged after Owens, who caught him with a knee. Reigns shoved Owens into the referee, which is how the referee got knocked down. Owens performed a pop-up powerbomb, which, to get your visual 1, 2, 3, while the referee was out at ringside. Owens set up Reigns for another move, but Reigns hit him with a low blow while the referee was still down. Reigns had barked at Zayn to get a chair. And like, if you're a fan, like, the first thing you do is you go under the ring, right? But Sammy's looking around like, oh, I don't know where a chair is. He went like to the farthest possible place where like Samantha Irving and the timekeepers sit to grab a chair. Zayn hesitated before giving it to Owens and then said, do it. Owens then recovered and then kicked Reigns and hit him with a stunner. The referee returned and made a near fall count, and the referee just came out of nowhere to get the near fall. The broadcast team was kind of mentioning that Sammy was, and hyping up rather, that Sammy was breathing a sigh of relief. But was it for Roman kicking out, or was it for Kevin almost getting the 1, 2, 3? So interesting little tidbit there, which obviously we knew what that meant later on. Reigns went to ringside and speared Owens through the timekeeper's barricade. Reigns rolled Owens back inside the ring. Owens rolled out to the other side of the ring, which Reigns was pissed about. Reigns slammed the back of, this was so brutal. So once he caught up back with Owens on the other side, Reigns slammed the back of Owens' head into the ring steps. So where the steps are, Owens was his back was laying on it. So Reigns would pick up and just slam him down. He did it twice. It was just brutal. It legit made me cringe. Like, it made me cringe. So they got me there. After that, though, Reigns rolled Owens back inside the ring. Rolled him back inside of the ring. Sami Zayn was just looking just super fucking concerned. Like, he was ready for this to be done. And at one point before the whole barricade incident, Sammy was telling Owens to just stay down, just end it, just stay down. But Owens just wouldn't do it until until the end. Reigns rolled Owens back inside the ring and then looked down and spoke to Heyman and Zayn. Heyman told Zayn, or I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of my notes there. But after getting Kevin Owens back inside of the ring, Reigns slammed the and after he had just the if you guys didn't see that really quick before the ending here, you need to. Like, it was just, I don't know how they did it, but it was brutal, man. It really got me. But Owens had punched Reigns, who bounced off of the ropes and then speared him and got the 1, 2, 3 to win the match. And then after the match, guys, is where things took a turn, and it disintegrated. You know, just the bloodline blew up from within. It was so sad to see. So obviously the background you can see, guys, which we'll get into here in a moment. But after the match is when the Usos finally made their way down to the ring. They ended up getting they just obliterated Owens. I think ended up hitting him with like 11 super kicks or something in totality. They ended up handcuffing Owens to the rings, which you guys can see in the background if you're watching on YouTube. And that's when the final test really began for Sammy. So let's see if I have a picture of it. I didn't save that picture. So there was a moment where Reigns was going to just obliterate Owens with the chair, and Sammy kind of stood in between him, was like, stop, enough is enough. Like, you're better than this. You don't need to do this. Just stop. He's had enough. And Roman was like, you're right. You're right. I am above this. You're going to do this. And he went to just hand Sami Zayn the chair. And it was just quite the visual. After looking at the chair and contemplating whether Sami really wanted to grab the chair or not, he grabbed the chair, and what was just a fucking tremendous callback to the Shield and what Roman went through and the betrayal that he went through there with Seth. This time it was Sami holding the chair behind Roman. Roman not thinking anything of it, and then next thing you know, we get this. We get the turn of Sami on Roman, which isn't really. I love the way they did it because it's not Sami's fault, right? Sami didn't betray the bloodline. The bloodline, Roman specifically, betrayed him. He put him in a situation where he couldn't. How are you going to do that if you're Sami Zayn, right? How are you going to just obliterate your best friend for what, 10, 15 years? And especially when he's handcuffed. Like, you guys can see the picture. It's just Kevin was hopeless and just helpless in that situation. So the connection with the chair to the back of Roman and the callback that is to the Shield, right, with Seth turning his back and betraying Roman and the Shield. It's just so well done. So well done. And then the look on Roman's face after he realized what you guys can see here. There's so many things with this visual, right? First of all, the look on Roman's face, the realization of what the fuck just happened, the heartbreak, the confliction, just the betrayal, everything going into what just happened from Sami, and the oh shit, like, this dude actually has balls. This dude stood up for himself. Like, he wasn't expecting this. In the far right, you see the shock on Paul Heyman, the wise man, the confliction in his face, but more just shock and just what the fuck happened, right? How can Sami do this to the tribal chief? No one does that to the tribal chief. Not Paul Heyman's tribal chief. Like, no one does that to him. You don't see Jimmy in the background, but more importantly and most importantly in this shot, you see Jay. Right here at this moment, he's looking at Sami and he's like, what did you do? What just happened? And you guys have to see the video clip that they already have on YouTube. It's like maybe a minute, not even a minute and a half. The heartbreak and the torment that Jay experiences when he sees what Sami just did and what he knows is about to happen with Jimmy super kicking Sami and then Sami just getting beat down by Jimmy, and by Solo, and just being left for dead, really left there with his brother Kevin Owens and their own version of the bloodline, and having Roman Reigns just pick apart the lei that Sammy was supposed to have and just throw the flowers on him. But before that, before the lei part even happened, we got Jay walking out. Jay Uso walked out on the bloodline because he was so conflicted, because he didn't want to beat down Sammy. He didn't want to be a part of it. The confliction that you see on his face and the confliction that he felt and the agony that he portrayed, it's just, in a lot of ways, guys, in a lot of ways, Jay Uso is the MVP here. And I think I'm very intrigued to see what this means going forward, because I guess, and I assumed, and incorrectly, that it was going to be the Usos against Sammy and Kevin, right? But if Jay is this conflicted, this could be the setup for what happens after Roman loses the title to WrestleMania, or to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. This right here is what I'm predicting will be the next chapter and the next evolution in the Reigns and Bloodline story and book. We're going to wrap up the championship with Cody Rhodes taking the torch and kind of taking the company in a different focal point and a different route. But you still have the heart of what's been keeping the show so fucking intriguing the past year, 2 years, which is the bloodline. But now you don't have the arbitrage, which is the title holding down Roman. It's not, he can come and go as he pleases now and be the center of the bloodline and it not be holding down the WWE championship. So you have two kick-ass stories. You'll have the rise and the story of Cody Rhodes once he becomes the champion after WrestleMania. But then you have the beautiful story that could be Jay Uso becoming a main event player and a main event Jay again, going up against Roman Reigns. So I think it was such a beautifully told story. It took a turn that I didn't expect with the Jay confliction. Just everything about it was just so beautiful. And then the press conference that they had after it, which we'll get into really quick, with Cody Rhodes just mentioning that, first of all, if you've seen a Cody interview, you know Cody's emotional, right? And I love that about Cody. I love how real he is. I love that he respects wrestling. He loves wrestling. He literally said there's nothing else that he can do and that he's meant to do. He's meant to be a wrestler, right? And to see how much of himself that he puts into this business and that he respects and that he acknowledges that there was a shot that he wouldn't, there could have been a chance where Triple H didn't allow him, or the company didn't allow him to be in this situation, right? And to be in this position and to be the focal point going into WrestleMania. The story now is turning to Cody Rhodes and the royal family that is Cody, and that version of wrestling that we haven't seen, where you have someone who we've literally seen grow up in the business as well, just a different way. He's gone through different journeys and different characters, right? We've seen Dashing Cody Rhodes, we've seen Stardust, we've seen AEW Cody, and I love that he mentioned that in this press conference too. And I love the fact that he is okay with and just comfortable with himself, right? I'll probably get into, maybe I'll do a little bit more of a breakdown of the press conference, but I love the fact that Cody set the scene, and Cody is a star, and Cody has that main event presence, and he respects Roman. And he respected Roman enough to not talk about Roman until it was time. So there's so much more to get into, guys. We have been here a little over an hour already, so I'm not going to hold you guys too much longer. Thank you guys for watching the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you check out the show. Feel free to leave your feedback and leave your takes in the comments, and leave what you thought of the show, what you thought of this show, what you think going forward. But thank you guys, as always, for checking it out, and I will be back soon.